Aloha, my name is Jordan Hine. Before I begin, I'm going to ask that everyone for a brief moment close their eyes and imagine that everything you know and love is gone. You have nowhere to turn for comfort, no resources to speak of, and as if that weren't bad enough, you've just received a final notice to vacate your home. Loneliness, despair, and fear have become your only companions. Your utter destitution drives you to do things that you could never have imagined. Your very survival depends on the kindness of strangers, charitable donations, and a government who has long since forgotten you. Okay, now I'm going to ask that you keep that image in your head throughout my presentation. What I have just described and what you now have a picture of is a reality for thousands of homeless people in this country on any given night. Today, I'm going to be asking the question whether or not Hawaii should provide homeless camps to care for the indigent. We're going to go and take a closer look at homelessness, what it means, who are the homeless, how did they become homeless, and why, effects on the community. We'll look at some general opinions, possible solutions. I'll throw in a few closing thoughts, review, and my conclusion, and then say mahalos for joining me. So, let's begin. I would like to start by saying that I don't know what it's like to be without a home or a family support system. And most of us could not imagine the hardships that someone in that situation must face on a daily basis. Homelessness is an inescapable reality in my community and many around the nation. The National Health Care for the Homeless Council defines a homeless person as an individual without permanent housing who may live on the streets, stay in a shelter, mission, single-room occupancy facilities, abandoned building or vehicle, or in any other unstable or non-permanent situation. Hawaii has an estimated 17,000 to 20,000 homeless people. Many of them reside in and around state and county beaches and parks, vacant lands, heavily wooded areas, under bridges or under freeway overpasses. With a basic understanding of what it means to be without a home, we will look at who is affected and how many. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, estimates in their 2012 Nation Point-in-Time Annual Homeless Assessment Report that there are 610,042 people experiencing homelessness on any given night in the United States. Of that number, more than 200,000 are people in families, and nearly 400,000 are individuals. About 100,000 people in the homeless population are considered chronically homeless, and nearly 60,000 of the homeless adults are veterans. Okay, now let's look at how and why people become homeless. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, NAEH, there are varying reasons why people become homeless. For a family, this is generally due to some unforeseen financial crisis, medical emergencies, or a death of a family member, which can bring hardship upon a family. The homeless youth population, on which there is very little conclusive data, often find themselves in this situation due to problems at home, including divorce, neglect, or abuse. 9% of the homeless population is made up of veterans, many of whom return from service with war-related injuries, both physical and mental. Many of them have experienced the atrocities of war and are plagued by mental anguish, which can manifest itself in erratic and sometimes violent behavior. Some veterans are unable to readjust to civilian life, may turn to drugs and alcohol as an escape, and end up on the streets. The chronically homeless make up approximately 16% of the entire homeless population and are defined as those who experience either long-term or repeated bouts of homelessness, many of whom are physically and/or mentally disabled. Now, what do any of these statistics have to do with the average American? Well, homelessness doesn't just affect those experiencing it. Communities are affected as well. And contrary to popular belief, not addressing the situation costs taxpayers. In Hawaii, a 1999 study estimated annual cost of hospital treatments for the homeless at around $3.5 million. Many of our nation's indigent are exposed to diseases like hepatitis and HIV while on the streets. Mental illness, substance abuse, crime, and victimization are commonplace. As a result, the chronically homeless use a high number of publicly funded health services and criminal justice system resources. Findings published in the 2009 Journal of American Medical Association that measured the use and the cost of services over a 6-month time period, such as arrests and incarcerations, shelter sobriety facilities, hospitalization, emergency medical services, substance abuse treatment, indicates that when compared to people who were given housing assistance, the use and the cost of these publicly funded services were greatly reduced. For many, the general view of homelessness is one of out of sight, out of mind, in that their perceptions are neither one way or another. There are those, however, that do have strong opinions on the issue. They contend that homeless seek to take advantage of government-funded programs, and that private organizations and public volunteer groups only help to enable them not to take responsibility for their own lives. One such individual with very strong views towards homelessness is Hawaii State Representative Tom Brower, a 5-term Democratic state legislator who represents Waikiki and Ala Moana, which do have large homeless populations. In a FoxNews.com article published on November of 2013, Brower is quoted as saying that he is disgusted with people who live on the street and took matters into his own hands by smashing shopping carts thought to be used by homeless. Mr. Brower's actions earned him the nickname Bully and a great deal of criticism from both advocacy groups and the general public. His approach, however misguided, did help to shine a spotlight on an increasingly critical situation. The NAEH reports that on a per capita basis, Hawaii is second only to the nation's capital, with a rate of 45.4 homeless per 10,000 people. Possible solutions are few, but not unattainable. Although it may seem we are faced with an impossible task, that there are options, some of which are more sensible than others. So, what do we do? Where do we start? Well, let's look at a few options. Option 1, we can do nothing, basically like we've been doing, and continue to turn a blind eye on the issue. But we all know that eventually, one way or another, we will have to face America's dirty, not so little, and not so secret. Option 2. Many states have simply made it illegal to be homeless. Author Brandon Walker explains in his article published on prisonplanet.com entitled FEMA Camps. In August, right before a festival honoring the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement, lawmakers in the city of Columbia, South Carolina, went as far as to round up all the homeless and gave them a choice between jail or being exiled to FEMA camps on the outskirts of town. Problem was that apparently people weren't allowed to come and go as they pleased. They were required to make an appointment for a ride, which was the only way they would be allowed to leave. I'm pretty sure that that solution promises to violate one's constitutional rights, so let's move on. Option 3. In June, Hawaii lawmakers approved a bill called the Return to Home Initiative. Through the Department of Human Services, DHS, a number of Hawaii's homeless population would be given free airfare to return home to their mainland origins. However, the measure has been put on the back burner due to cost and management issues. In a statement to the Washington Times, Department of Human Services Director Patricia McManaman says, "This is not a function that is appropriate for the state of Hawaii to administer. We are not in the business of relocating homeless individuals and families to other states. If an individual wishes to return home, they should reach out to family members or seek support from charitable organizations." While politicians and department heads play hot potato with the issue, we'll move on to option 4, homeless camps. Homeless camps have been the topic of discussion for quite some time. Lawmakers and homeless advocacy groups have jostled the idea around and tried to come up with a concept that works for everyone. The basic idea is to have a parcel of land used for housing people in temporary shelters. However, many argue factors of operational costs, legal liability, sanitation, and security concerns. There are many states who have attempted various models of the concept with successful results. Success of such an undertaking is dependent upon participation and will require public and private partnership. No one organization can do it alone. Whatever the recipe, there is one thing that everyone involved can agree on. Something needs to be done. This issue will not fix itself. The first step to fixing any problem is recognizing that we have one. Next is admitting that we have a problem, followed by taking responsibility for it, and finally moving toward and implementing a solution. So, here we are. Good old US of A. Supposed shining example for the rest of the world. The land of the free, the home of the brave. I think not. More like the land of the gluttonous and the home of over 3.5 million homeless. We reek from the stench of pride, which is funny because I'm not so sure what it is we should be proud of. What I do know is that the solution does not take a physicist or a rocket scientist to figure it out. But hey, since we don't have a space program anymore, maybe we can enlist the help of a few NASA guys. I'm just saying, it wouldn't hurt. No, seriously. An issue of this magnitude is going to take a continued collaborative effort from all levels of government, private sectors, and the general public. We need to take a realistic approach to fixing this. United States citizens are what make this country great. And right now, there are over 600,000 of us who are in desperate need of help. Perhaps we all need to be reminded of what the word united actually means. It's easy to judge someone when you have not walked a day in their shoes. For many of us, it is easier to look the other way, put it out of our minds, and pretend like it's their problem, not ours. How many times have you passed by that guy on the street corner and snubbed your nose or scoffed at him? Why do we automatically assume that he is there because he put himself there? And what difference does that make anyway? The fact is that many of the indigent suffer from mental illness and are enslaved by substance abuse. A lot of them have experienced traumatic events in their lives, such as child abuse, domestic violence, war, rape, loss of loved ones. Many of them have been victimized throughout their lives and have had little to no support and no realistic chance of ever living the American dream. My assignment was to write a persuasive speech, and my goal for this paper was to convince you that Hawaii should provide homeless camps for the indigent. But truthfully, I don't know that that would help, as there is no one solution for an issue this complex. It is not simply that people are in need of homes or shelter, because homelessness is not the problem as much as it is a side effect of many others. By my own observations, personal experiences, through research, and speaking directly with advocates, I have gained a better understanding of the overall situation Hawaii and the rest of the nation is facing. I've come to realize that just as they have failed to live up to the standards that society has set, society has failed them. And they are a direct reflection of America's humanity, or lack thereof. Maybe that's why many of us would no sooner like to sweep the subject under the rug, roll it up, and place it on the street with the rest of the stuff that we have no use for. Let's face it, life on the streets is no walk in the park. Many homeless experience some of the worst treatment humanity has to offer. They're victimized, brutalized, ostracized, and sometimes even killed for doing nothing more than sleeping on the side of the street. They aren't they aren't nameless. They aren't faceless. They aren't worthless. And in fact, some of them are war heroes. They are our mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts, family, friends. They are the youth of the nation. So the next time you pass by that park, or that street corner, or that alleyway, remember the image I asked you to keep in your head. Because like you, that person once had a home. So show some aloha, because you never know when you might find yourself in a similar situation. Mahalos for your time. I'd like to dedicate this speech to my uncles Fred and David, and to all of those struggling just to survive. If you would like more information on this topic, or if you would like to find out how you can help someone in need, contact your local homeless shelter, church, or community center. Mahalos and God bless.